Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another JazzInc vehicle unboxing and review video. Now today we are taking a look at none other than the ultimate 1/12 scale Batmobile from BvS and Justice League. Now I do have to say a massive thank you to Yoast and the team over at JazzInc for getting me this early production sample. If you are looking to grab your very own 1/12 scale Batmobile, it comes in a couple of different variants. You can either get the Batmobile itself, you can get the Justice League upgrade kit, you can get the display base, or you can get the entire package, which is what I have right here. It's the ultimate version. This is officially licensed, and I've popped the link to JazzInc down in the description below. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art and it looks stunning. This is the first time I've ever seen one of JazzInc's Batmobiles with the officially licensed packaging, and they have outdone themselves. You've got an image of the vehicle front and center, a Gotham City skyline, as well as the BvS logo. Now, along the bottom, you have a bunch of shots highlighting the various features, such as the cockpit and the weaponry, and then on the back, all of the various warnings. But we're not necessarily here to dissect the box, we're more here to look at the Batmobile itself. Now it does come packaged in a very sturdy hunk of foam, and it is multiple layers. Right up top we do have the display base that you can purchase separately or simply leave it out if you find that you don't want it. You also have all of the Justice League accessories on one side and the two back fins on the other. Then down below, the Batmobile itself. Now this is actually surprisingly a little bit lighter than I was expecting, but that, in my opinion, is a good thing. If you have a vehicle in any scale, you know what I'm talking about. You want this to be super sturdy, but a little bit lighter, so if you're displaying it on glass shelves, you don't have to worry about this eventually breaking through said display. What we are going to do now though is get all of the parts and pieces that come with the Batmobile laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything it comes with. Here we have everything that comes with the ultimate version of the Batmobile. Now let's start off with the display base first. I love the way this looks. It's super simple and it's rather thin. It's also relatively lightweight, but it does feel rather sturdy. This can definitely take the weight of the Batmobile. You've got some shading around the edges and also some bright silver paint on the various D-rings. This is kind of reminiscent of the inside of the Flying Fox. So technically you could pop your Batmobile on top and then all of your 1/12 scale Justice League figures around the car itself to create a full-on diorama. Now on the other side you do have some black velvet, so that means this shouldn't go slipping and sliding around your display. Now on the left we do have all of the Justice League pieces, and on the right the standard attachments that you'll have to install to finish off the look for your BvS Batmobile. The seats look exactly as they should. There are some orange highlights inside these sections up the top, as well as the arrows, and then some silver shading. These look and feel the part. They are a nice sturdy solid plastic, and they attach via magnets. You also get the twin guns that can rotate independently of one another, and there is a magnetic section there as well. You pop it on the front of the car and then you can rotate it. Don't worry, we'll check that out a little bit later in the video. You also, of course, get the two back fins. The paint applications are rather subtle. There's some silver dry brushing on the high spots, as you would expect, where the paint has gotten chipped and worn away, and then you have some silver metallic on the underside, plus a real spring. That is some very nice attention to detail. Once again, we will install that on the vehicle in just a second. Now, as for the Justice League pieces, you do have this second windshield that can actuate and move up and down, and there is some silver dry brushing on it as well. The way you install this is very straightforward. You literally detach the back section, which has the mechanism pre-installed for the opening cockpit. It's magnetic. This one just pops in place, and I will show you how to do that as well. You also get this massive cannon. Of course, in Justice League, he does remove one of the seats and replace it with this huge gun, so you will do exactly that as well. Once again, it attaches via magnets. You also get this second windshield piece because, of course, one side is left completely uncovered, whereas the other simply has this shield, and it's painted to the nines. There is a certain level of shiny metallicness to it, and there's also some shading and weathering around the edges. Next up, you do get 2 additional guns with a ton of silver dry brushing on them as well, once again attaching via magnets, and then you get a bunch of missiles. I'm pretty sure these are actually flares, but they will simply attach onto the Batmobile. You guessed it, via magnets. And then lastly, this section which replaces the twin guns from BvS. It uses the exact same mechanism, which means it'll rotate in the very same way. What we are going to do now, though, is get the Batmobile itself out here and take a closer look. Here we have the Batmobile, fully assembled with the BvS components. Don't worry, I will be popping on the Justice League parts as promised, because I think that's going to be my favourite look for this thing, just like it was for the 1/6 scale version. Now, speaking of this piece's larger brother, this is essentially a shrunk down version of it. It's a lot lighter, it's a lot smaller, but it's still super accurate. And that's a really good thing. I don't have a ton of space in the display. While I adore the 1/6 scale Batmobile, this one can work in the background of your 1/6 scale display, kind of like you're playing with forced perspective, or if you're a 1/12 scale collector, it can work because you can simply pop your 1/12 scale Batman in the cockpit and have the rest of the Justice League around the car itself. So it works on multiple levels. Now let's talk about the paint applications around the vehicle. It's cast in a dark grey / almost black plastic, and that goes all the way around. Then over the top of that, you have a ton of awesome silver dry brushing and detail work. On the front, you've got the Gatling gun, which can move around. You've already seen the paint applications on it, but it looks awesome. There is also a bunch of scratching and scuffing on the front, on the side, around the back. You can tell that this thing has been driven hard. It's been driven around the streets of Gotham. The paint applications on the outside of the vehicle tell a story. It's not a brand new factory fresh car without a scuff on it. This thing has seen some action. And I love that. Around the back, it's fully detailed as well with the thruster and various gold sections. It's painted to the nines. The wheels are made of a strong rubber. That means you shouldn't have any cracking and they shouldn't deform over time because this thing isn't all that heavy. And you do have a smaller one up the front and a much larger one up the back to give it this kind of sloped stance. It's very aggressive. I love the way it looks. But before we pop the Justice League parts on, it's worth talking about the cockpit. It does open in the very same way as the 1/6 scale version. You simply open up the cockpit itself, they splay out, which is very accurate to the movie, and then the cockpit is fully detailed. It's painted up. There are sections which light up because yes, there is an LED function. You simply flick the switch and the various panels come to life. You can also rotate the steering wheel, which yes, doesn't actually rotate the wheels, but it's a very nice touch. I am super happy with how the cockpit is done. For those wondering what the BvS Batman by Mezco looks like inside the cockpit, he actually fits in perfectly. I was worried that because he's on a bigger body, the cockpit wasn't going to be able to close. But as you can see, it closes and seals completely. His ears, his body, everything is out of the way. However, because he is a little bit beefier, he's not the easiest in the world to pop in there. You are going to have to spend some time working around the steering wheel, the seat, and also this center strut piece, but once you take your time and you get him in there, he looks awesome. He also, of course, has that massive cape, which I simply tucked behind him. If you wanted to, you could technically remove it, and then you'd have a far easier time. But let's be honest, we want Batman wearing the cape inside the Batmobile, and yes, I'm pleased to report, you can totally do that. Now, in order to convert the Batmobile from BvS to Justice League mode, there are a few components that you have to remove, starting off with the top panel, and then the passenger seat. You can proceed to install the large cannon, remove the front sections. You can then bring in the replacement windshield, which of course only covers one half of the vehicle. With the front windshield slightly open, you can then install the shroud piece, which sits over the passenger section, install the flare sections on the back, install the machine guns where the front sections were before, and then lastly, to complete the look, remove the guns up the front and pop in the magnetic missile pods. And there you have it, the Justice League version of the Batmobile. I loved this thing in BvS, don't get me wrong, it's big but sleek at the same time, you can tell it means business. But in Justice League, it was ready for all-out war. All of the good stuff that I said about the Batmobile previously, it still applies. Of course, it's the same underlying vehicle. The paint applications are still stunning, it's still a nice, sturdy piece. But now we have the addition of all of these weapons. My favorite is probably the big honkin' cannon up the front. It is massive. Literally, Batman ripped out the passenger seat and said, no, I'm not carrying anyone in the Batmobile. I'm going to install a massive honkin' cannon. And it works. I never thought it would. I thought when this was first announced, including the 1/6 scale version, no, I'm a purist, I'm going to go with the BvS look. But there's no denying how good this looks. I'm also a huge fan of how the cannons up the front have these magazine or ammo belts that kind of feed into the body of the Batmobile itself. It shows that, yeah, the ammo has to come from somewhere, so Batman has gone ahead and installed some kind of reservoir where they are feeding from inside the front of the car. You can still move the missile pod left and right, just like you could with the guns that were on the front of the vehicle previously. And another really cool feature is that because you've removed half of the cockpit, you've revealed a ton of detail on the passenger side that was otherwise covered up. So yes, this is absolutely my favorite look out of the two. But I'm pretty sure you'll want to know what Batman actually looks like inside the Justice League version of the Batmobile. Just like we saw earlier with the BvS Batman from Mezco, you can very easily fit in the tactical suit Batman as well, and the cockpit does fully close. I was worried because of the bulk of tactical suit Batman that it wasn't quite going to fit, but no, it totally does. You can close up the cockpit and it seals completely. His bat ears aren't poking at the top of the canopy, which is something that I thought might happen. It wasn't the easiest feat in the world to get Batman in there because he is suitably bulky with all of the armor on, but once you take your time and get him to sit in place, slide him as far down as he will go, you can then pop his hands on the steering wheel and fully close the cockpit. Just wrapping up on the 1/12 scale Ultimate Batmobile by JazzInc. Now, you all know I absolutely adore the 1/6 scale vehicle. It's clearly the superior choice if you have the space. But if you don't, this is no slouch. It takes everything that's awesome about the big one and scales it down to a much more manageable size. I've seen collectors out there who say, well, I don't have the space for the big one, but I still want to have this vehicle represented in the display because it looks so darn good. And that it does. This design, I think, will go down as one of the most underrated yet most badass Batmobile designs of all time. I cannot get enough of how good this vehicle looks in person. Plus, if you are getting the Ultimate version, you get the Justice League accessories, you get the display base. Then again, you can purchase those separately if you've already bought the BvS one, but it's just a very well put together package. Now, as I said in the intro, I got mine from JazzInc. They were kind enough to send me this production sample. They do still have some available, I believe, on the website. I've popped the link to JazzInc in the description down below. While you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.